City manager. 1-0 down at the break, with Jacob Murphy scoring his first of the season. It was a first half that ended in a positive way for Leicester, starting to build themselves back into the game. But within 5 minutes of the second half, they were 3-0 down. A close range header from Guimaraes made it 2. Isak made it 3. And as we hit the hour mark, Murphy got his second goal of the game that made it 4. The Leicester players, joined by the manager Ruud van Nistelrooy and his coaching team, will go and applaud the travelling Leicester fans who've got the long trip back to the East Midlands. Full-time score here inside St James's Park is Newcastle United 4, Leicester City 0.
Thanks, John. A sobering day on Tyneside for Leicester City. Ruud van Nistelrooy's first defeat as manager since taking over a couple of weeks ago. We'll have all the analysis for you with Matt Elliott, David Nugent and Jerry Taggart at St James's Park. But just to bring you up to date with what's happening elsewhere in the Premier League, it's finished goalless between Arsenal and Everton at the Emirates. There's a late goal at Molineux.
Oh.
It's gone to Ipswich. Wolves 1, Ipswich 2. Jack Taylor in the 94th minute with that one. That one could be huge. Ipswich looking for their second win of the season. At Anfield, it is currently Liverpool 2, Fulham 2. That's in the closing moments there. Diogo Jota has got an equaliser for Liverpool. We'll let you know when those games have finished, but let's talk about the game that we've been watching today. Newcastle winning.
Do we have to?
I'm sorry, that is what we're here for. We do. They've won, and they've won handsomely, Matt.
Yeah, you did fear that might be the case from the outset. And the game started the way that most people would have predicted, unfortunately. But like we said at half-time, the deficit was only the 1 goal. And while that's still the case, Leicester weren't being totally outclassed, but they were under the cosh, don't get me wrong. And it looked slightly ominous, but then a little bit of a response the last 5-10 minutes, which gave encouragement going into the second half. And I said at half time, but it's, in my understanding, it's very rare that Newcastle dominate from start to finish, but they pretty much did today, all said and done. And I think there are a lot of reasons why, a lot of factors come into it, but that second goal, conceding so early after the start of the second half, and so easily, so straightforwardly, that we can make allowances for the concession of the first goal with the invention of the set piece. The second one was just, school playground stuff. It was just a clip to the far. But, you can't get any more basic, really. Should be prepared for that. Didn't react. And once it's 2-0, the ease with which they scored sort of almost compounded the impact of the goal. Really, it's the deflation that Leicester players and supporters must have felt there, and his shoulders were sagging, weren't they? And it was pretty much game over from the second goal.
You brought us the positivity, Dave, just before half time when we were as we were talking at half time, when we were saying how dominant Newcastle had been. But you said, no, it's only 1-0, it'll all be all right. But yeah, that was an absolute killer goal. Guimaraes got the header, but it was Lewis Hall, who we spoke about at half time, who provided that one and the third for Isak as well, and just had far too much time and space.
Yeah, especially the free kick that Matty said is just a clip to the back post. No one's marking Lewis Hall. The header back across goal to the back post. There's no one within 5 yards. There's Guimaraes as he heads it in. Another set play conceded, and then obviously the third one down the left hand side again. Lewis Hall whips it into the box, takes a little deflection off Connor Cody, I think it was, and Isak 6 yards out, free header to make it 3-0, and 2 quick fire goals. Obviously Danny Ward's come on as a sub as well. First 2 involvements, he picks the ball out the back of the net, which is not ideal, but again, Newcastle are just too strong for us. They dominated the game throughout, and we had our little spells, but just weren't good enough today.
Yeah, just to let you know, that Ipswich game at Wolves has finished now. So it's Wolves 1, Ipswich 2, which is a huge result for them and a huge result at the bottom of the Premier League. Liverpool-Fulham looks like it is still ongoing at 2-2 at Anfield. What do you put that down to then, Matt, in terms of...
Set piece?
Yeah, is there a communication issue there? Because there was so much room,
But
so much space.
I'm scratching my head really a little bit.
There was a few little blockers, weren't there, but still...
Not really, news. Like there was, but nothing you shouldn't be aware of and be able to deal with. It was obvious where the free kick was going. It was set up and Was it Gordon who took the free kick?
Yeah,
It's just a clip, weren't it?
But it was always just going. It wasn't if he was trying to put a bit of disguise, be creative like they were in the first set piece with the corner, the first goal. It was just clip the far post, and but James Justin's allowed himself to get half blocked, which shouldn't happen really because it was obvious where the ball was going. But you've got to react to it. You feel someone who's lurking in the vicinity who might get in your way. You've got to preempt that and keep the distance, keep them away from you, and keep your eye on the real danger. And Leicester didn't filter across enough, and then they didn't react once because I thought on first viewing, I thought there must have been some great movement there to allow Hall to have that much space. For that space to be created, there's got to be something quite intricate that's happened. Looked on replay, couldn't be more basic, and then they've just basically ambled back and haven't picked up. Like the alarm bells are going once the ball reaches Hall. You're thinking, "Here's trouble, here's trouble," but it didn't seem that way with Leicester. They didn't look at the dangers, and there were 3 or 4 dangers, i.e. Newcastle players, hanging around, ready to put that ball in the back of the net. As it happens, it was Gimmerish. Yeah, so one of a line that could have scored. And like I say, that pretty much game was done and dusted then. And you could see, never mind in terms of the score sheet, the score line, mentally the players looked as if they knew they were defeated. They looked demoralised after that, really.
Yeah, we were watching it on the screens. Jerry Taggart, you were watching it at St James's Park, of course. Did it feel like that second goal really did kill off today's game?
Yeah. Sorry. Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
We've got you. We've got your tags.
Have you got
Loud
me?
and clear.
Okay, yeah. I think, yeah, it's fair to say that the second goal, so early on in the second half, sort of took a little bit of the wind out of Leicester City's sails. After that, every time, Newcastle were going forward, they looked as if, they were getting shots on goals, or they looked as if they were going to score. So it ended up being a really tough afternoon here at St James's Park, it has to be said.
Did it feel, from a Newcastle point of view, that there was a lot of tactical work going into those routines that we saw Newcastle score from? Because from watching it back as we were, it just all seemed so simple.
But no, it's just basic movement. And I think that the issue is they all stand in a line, don't they nowadays? Well, when they're defending free kicks, they all sort of zonal mark from corners, and so I don't know whether or not they're given a job, the players, when they're stood in that line and someone makes a run to the back post. But surely there's got to be a little bit of room for manoeuvre, a little bit of room for people to have, make their own minds up, and not all just stay in a solid line, 1 or 2 yards between each player. And I think you could say for the first goal that was good tactical work on the training ground, because it was a 3v1 basically. That and obviously the finish is good, but for the second goal, I mean, it's just basic movement to the back post, and that wasn't the first time. It happened later on in the half, where I think Fabian Schär is at the back post, but he can't get enough purchase on the header to get it back across the goal into the danger area. So, but you've got to read those situations. You've got to be aware of what may and what may not be coming your way. And unfortunately for Leicester, they just didn't read them. The lead up to that second goal, it was just a clearance. So Leicester got down the right-hand side, put a really good ball into the box, which Newcastle failed to clear their lines. But when the ball dropped, someone's just put their boot through it. It's come out to this left-hand side to Gordon. He's got up the pitch to the edge of the box, got a free kick, and then that set-piece goal, occurs straight up from that clearance. So there was two mistakes, or two instances where Leicester didn't switch on at the right time. One, when they were in possession of the ball and Newcastle cleared it, and two, when they were setting up for the free kick, they just let someone run to the back post, no one within 5-6 yards of them, free header to get it back across goal. And obviously they've worked on that, Newcastle. So they know exactly where the players are going to be when it goes out wide and beyond the far post. So the guy who's heading it back in knows exactly where he's got to head it. That's the only work the manager would have done on the training part. But as far as tactical brilliance, I'd have to say no, there's no tactical brilliance.
Well, we'll just bring you a full time, Jerry, just before we come back to you, at full time at Liverpool 2, Fulham 2. So that's Liverpool and Arsenal dropping points in the title race. I think Chelsea might be rubbing their hands together ahead of playing at Brentford tomorrow. Getting interesting at that end of the table. Of course, for Leicester, it's all about looking over the shoulder now. Ipswich, of course, winning at Wolves this afternoon, and Wolves are the next visitors to King Power Stadium next weekend. And Matchday Live will be here to take you through that one. Jerry, you mentioned about making decisions and decision making, and especially with those set pieces. But the fourth goal, it felt like everyone did make a decision, but it was all to move across, and it left a lot of space in open play, David.
Yeah, that left-hand side again, weren't it? I think he's got down left-hand side, cut inside, and Christensen's just coming over to help Vestergaard. Overcompensated, and he just leaves a massive gap for Jacob Murphy. Basically to have a touch and get a shot, and it was, by the time Vestergaard gets across again to block it, or Christensen, I think it was nowhere near him, and it was an easy finish for
a little bit
Jacob
bedraggled, to say the least, by them, weren't they? Because I think if he had his time again, Christensen would have perhaps delayed coming over so much, because Cody was actually backtracking, but because it was all erratic, they weren't in a line, a unit as such. People were making second guesses almost, and it was just scrambled defensive work. But yeah, Christensen would think initially he was entitled to come across and cover Vestergaard, who looked like he needed help because he was panicking a little bit. Got his back turned on the ball, but then players coming from everywhere from Newcastle's point of view, they were swarming all over him a little bit, weren't they? As the shots tally suggests, doesn't it? 11 shots on goal to Leicester's 1, 27-4 in terms of attempts at goal. Yeah, it was quite emphatic, really, wasn't it, overall?
Yeah, I was going to mention that, actually, bring Jerry back in on that in terms of the shot statistics today, Jerry. We mentioned at half-time that during the first half, Newcastle would have more shots than they'd averaged over 90 minutes in any game this season, let alone a 45-minute period. And it was similar in the West Ham game, Leicester conceding a lot of shots against the opposition. That's going to be a huge concern for Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a worrying sign. I think if you're trying to analyse like how Newcastle we're on the front foot so much, you've got to look at the two centre halves, because they kept backing off, allowing Isak to come into the space in front of the midfield, in between the back line and the midfield, pick the ball up, get turned and get running. With none of the two centre halves coming up. Now, I know it's going to be difficult here, and I know the two lads are, because they haven't got that pace in behind, they're probably more worried about that than letting people get in behind them, than going and stopping it at source, so to speak, when that ball comes into Isak. But when Isak gets turned and runs at you, you're still on the back foot anyway, so he's still getting up the pitch. So somebody has to come in and at least try to make him lay it off first time, and then you just get back into your position as best you can and as quick as you can. And I think that was where a lot of Leicester's problems were in that second half, by allowing Newcastle players to come into that gap between the back and the midfield lines, get turned and just run riot at Leicester City. And you've seen that up 10 times in the second half, where Newcastle are running forward with a ball. They've got players in wide areas. You said Leicester a little bit narrow at times, and just causing all kinds of problems.
Well, Jerry, thank you for your time on Matchday Live. We'll let you head off and wish you a safe trip back from Newcastle. Just last final thoughts in the studio. Just having a little look at the table. Of course, we've still got games to go this weekend, but Leicester currently on 14 points, 2 points above the relegation zone, with Ipswich getting that win at Wolves, so that takes them to 12. It's Wolves and Southampton, the other two teams in there. Leicester are in 16th position. It's so early, but that Wolves game feels massive next week.
Yeah, it does. It's a crucial game. Wolves not in great form. Leicester after today, heavy defeat. A bit of a crunch game. We get the home advantage, but I just hope we can rattle our brains a little bit from this game, forget about it. Home form, we've done well on the road and home, obviously won and drew one at home. Let's go in there, be positive, try and put a performance on and get a result to match it as well.
There were changes today. Do you think there'll be changes again?
Yeah, if players are available for selection, yes, I think that was an added factor today, really. Look at it, certainly in the midfield, you got the sort of like the engine room, if you like, of your team has been totally dismantled, and it's difficult for Skip and Chowdhury to sort of work together in there. They gave it as best effort that they could, but Leicester are going to have to show resilience. But I think they've known that from the outset of the season, really, and that has been a quality they have shown. They've bounced back. They haven't got too despondent when they've had defeats, and hopefully that's going to be the case next week. Shrug it off, basically. Okay, what's done is done. Don't have any hangover. Don't let that bad performance blend into the next performance, and start again and give it your all and see if you can pick up points, because it's not be all or end all next week, but it's big. It's big, especially when you think the degree of difficulty of the games coming up after that as well. Man City's, Liverpool's, and one or two others floating around. So vital to pick up points when you get the opportunity.
Well, gents, thank you very much for this afternoon. That game against Wolves is next Sunday at 2 o'clock kickoff. We'll have all the build-up from 1 o'clock here on Matchday Live with Jerry Taggart, joined by Ewan Roberts in the studio. And Matt, you'll be in the commentary box. We look forward to that.
I will indeed.
Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night as best you can, and we'll see you next time on Matchday Live.